the small wins that can happen from making an attempt, because there is this, people stand on the edge, and they stand on the edge and they feel the pressure behind them of the things they don't enjoy, and their jobs that are sucking the lives out of them, and the expectations of parents and family, and in their mind they feel they should be doing more, they could be contributing in some other way, whatever. But then what's in front of them is this unknown, and that's so fearful, for all the reasons we've already spoken about.
Hi, Brian here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Leading Questions. And I'm so excited to be talking with Robb. Robb was here last time talking about his journey as an entrepreneur. And today I want to speak with him on a topic that he's very passionate about. But before we begin, Robb, would you like to introduce yourself just for those who may not know who you are or have watched the last episode?
Love to. Thanks for having me again, Brian. My name is Robb Gilbear. I am a coach, and my job and my focus is helping purpose-driven coaches, people who are really heart-led, build and scale businesses so that they can make money doing things that they love and while having an impact.
That's great. And last time we talked a bit about your journey as an entrepreneur, and you told us a story about your childhood and how you came up learning about marketing and I guess display merchandising.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also want to kind of hone in on a pivotal moment in your career where you switched from a full-time position and at very well-established companies to diving into full-time entrepreneurship. And I think there are some parallels with my journey and yours. So maybe you can help us, lead us into this conversation with a bit of that story.
Sure. So I've done this. It's something that I've done a couple times. I've made that leap a couple times. And I think it's the iterative process of what I've learned from other times where I made that leap, and a bit more of maturity now and a bit more focus is allowing me to feel very stable in this transition. So the last time I did it, I was a people and culture leader at a well-known tech company that actually uses technology and AI to track and predict the spread of infectious disease, where depending on when you're watching or listening to this episode, knowing that we're in COVID times and pandemic times, that company actually called the outbreak 9 days before the World Health Organization. I left weeks before. Like, the timing was crazy. And that story is one that's interesting because I had set a date in the summer. I created a Post-it note, and I was, hey, I'm going to leave on this date. And I chose an arbitrary date. It just so happened to be my birthday. It was far enough out that I believed I could do it. And it was also not too close, so it kind of didn't scare me. And then I really doubled down on taking incredible, massive action and started working with new mentors and teachers and took another course and did things to get myself ready to make the leap. And then I put the announcement up on LinkedIn. I'm doing this. I'm switching. I'm going all in on my own business. Me announcing that announcement went so big and it blew up that I was inundated with leads. I was inundated with people who were interested to work with me. And when I announced it, I said, I'm leaving my job in January. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. At the time, I was like, okay, I didn't meet my target date, which was December 10th. That's what was on my Post-it note. But I was like, January is not bad. Like, I'm okay with the fact that it's a few weeks off. That's cool with me. But I was so overwhelmed with leads and with interested people and with clients that I was getting up early in the morning, doing calls before going to work. I was doing coaching calls at the office over lunch. I was on a really fast track to burn out and realize that my choices were either miss out on a bunch of potential business as I was launching my company, or my other choice was to burn myself out. So I had to actually go back to my bosses and say, hey, I know I said that I was going to leave in 2 months. I was going to give you this extra time so you'd have time to backfill my role, et cetera, et cetera. I have to go in 2 weeks. And the date I actually ended up leaving was December 6th, which was 4 days before the date that I had written on that original Post-it note, which was December 10th.
Wow. And it's amazing how things kind of coincide and work itself out. I remember a bit of my journey as well is similar. So the past 6 years, I've been on and off doing, this side hustle, I often called it, where I'm consulting on advertising and marketing. And I remember I used to work at an agency that was, so I lived in Markham at the time. And this agency was right at the intersection of the 404 and the 401. So these two major arteries of Toronto. And I remember during that time, similar to you, I would wake up at 6 in the morning to get a couple of hours of work done. It took me about 20 minutes or so to drive to work. Actually, no, this was before I moved to Markham. So I was living at McCowan and 401. And it would take me about 20 minutes to drive along the highway to work, get to work. So I would time myself, okay, get ready at around 7 or 8. So I'd have an hour and a half, 2 hours of work done, drive to work. And then when I come back from work at around 5-ish, 5:30, and work a couple of hours then. So my days were kind of like 6 to 9, hustling to grow that business. And I was burnt out, and I had to drop basically all my clients within a year. And also, I got in a car accident, but that's kind of like a little, um, uh, tangent. But again, I also felt like it was either, keep the full-time job or go full-time into consulting. But at that time, I was too afraid to let go of that safety net. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to drop all my clients. And then, of course, I got into a car accident. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on my health. This fear I had of letting go of the safety net, I think you had a similar situation as well. And how did you deal with, leaving at various times in your career, leaving the safety net of quote unquote, you said a real job, to go into entrepreneurship, to go into starting your own business?
So there's a couple things I can say to this. And the first one is dating back to the first time I left a very secure job at one of the big 4 accounting firms. I'm on my third career. Career number 2 was in human resources, and I had an HR job there, and I had been there for 3 years. I had already had a bit of a promotion. It was clear what the path was ahead of me as far as what I could learn and grow. I had a couple of great mentors that were looking out for me. But I wasn't finding the job fulfilling. And when I looked at anyone who was older and the people who were further ahead on the path than me, I thought, I don't want that. I don't want to do what they do. They're stressed out. They're hating their jobs. A lot of them have problems in their relationships. Like this one's on their second marriage. This one's on their second divorce. This one's cheating with that one. I was just not at all what I wanted. And when I left to go start a business and to go do my own thing, I had several people pull me aside and say, like, are you sure? Are you sure about this? This seems risky. This is a risk. Have you thought through the risk? Because inherently, the people who choose a job as an accountant at a big 4 accounting firm tend to be pretty risk-adverse people that are really driven by fear. And it caught me off guard at first. And I definitely paused and thought, like, oh, maybe I'm making a bad decision. But I sat with it and realized that for me, the real fear I had was the fear of regret and the fear of not trying it. And I had quit another job. I had a few years before that worked at another big accounting firm, and I had quit, and I had big plans at the time. But that first time we found out shortly after I left that my wife at the time was pregnant. That changed everything. Then I had to go take some really crappy hourly jobs to fill the void until we got back, because this is right before our wedding, until we got back for our wedding before I could apply for real jobs. I spent a few weeks cleaning the Sky Dome at 3 a.m, cleaning up like spilt pop and popcorn out of the stands in between those ones. So I definitely, there was some fear, but for me, it really was, no, I've learned from that past time. There's an opportunity in front of me that I really believe in. And the fear I would have is, what if I don't do it? What if I don't try? And I took that with me this time. And it's a fear and confidence go hand in hand. I find it's people are like, I'll do it when I feel confident. I'll do it when I feel ready. But if you do that, you're never going to be ready. It's never going to happen. That fear is always kind of got to be there. And for you to get to a feeling of confidence, you need to commit to actually doing it. Like, I'm going to commit. I'm actually going to do it. You need to create some courage that, okay, I've committed to it. I'm going to push through it. I know it's going to be messy. I know it's going to be scary. I know it's full of unknowns. And then once you create the commitment and build up some courage and take action, then you can actually create some capabilities. And once you've created some capabilities and you start feeling like, oh, you've learned a bit, then you can start feeling confident. But it is only through going through that order. And that, like the commitment, the courage, the capabilities, and the confidence is an idea that I got from a really beautiful soul, this incredible, powerful coach. His name is Dan Sullivan. He's based in Toronto.
Okay.
And I came across something of his that was talking about that. And it really spoke to me. And I thought, yeah, any other time in the past where I hit massive success or tried something new, I had to jump in first.
Mm-hmm. What you just said there kind of unlocked this thought in my head, and it connected a few dots, because I recognize that the fear of letting go and not diving in head first, that first time, or like throughout the past the first 5 years of my 6-year stint, I really only started doing this full time for about a year now, was just not having enough confidence that I would be able to win new clients, to sustain my lifestyle, or to sustain, a living, quote unquote, right? And it literally took a global pandemic to light a fire under me, to commit, like you said, that first step, taking that plunge, committing to doing this full time, giving myself, still I would say now, looking back, conservatively, okay, I'll go try it for 3 months and we'll see. If it's sustainable for 3 months, I'll extend it for another 3 months, and then extend it for another 3 months. Now I'm in my second 3-month stint. So, but here I am, like, committing, and then recognizing my successes, and recognizing the milestones that I've set out for myself, gave me that courage, gave me that confidence to continue doing this. So thank you for sharing that with me, because that helped me connect some of the dots. And I think, throughout my life, I've dabbled, in different, I call it projects, but, they're kind of entrepreneurship things. But never really had the courage to go full in, because I liked the security way too much.
Yeah, well, I think there's liking it, and then there's also, depending on your upbringing, depending on family expectations and pressure. There's stuff we learn in school where it's tied to, whether you're going to get loved. Really, if we really get down to the root of it, as children, depending on what your school was like, and most public school is framed this way, depending on your family, that, yeah, you have to do it well. You have to get perfect. Anything less than an A, you're going to bring shame on the family. And I created a clubhouse room last night on a whim, and it was done is better than prefect. And I intentionally misspelled perfect. And it created a really cool container for people to share their experience with fear and with perfection. And one just like incredible person showed up and shared their experience, that growing up from an immigrant family where they had an older brother who could do no wrong. And their parents it was like, you get A's or you don't live under this house. You do things perfectly or we disown you. Like, it really was that kind of pressure. And it took them getting into a near-death experience, like getting hit by a car, for them to think, I'm not going to live in fear anymore. I'm not going to like create my mental model based on these pressures that were forced on me as a child.
Oh, that story resonated with me almost literally every step. Like, I would call myself the black sheep of the family. Even though I did well in school, it was never, I was always a disappointment to everyone, because they were like, every report card, you would go back to your comments and it's like, Brian is brilliant, is extremely smart and capable, but needs to show his potential, which is, teacher code word for Brian screws up all the time, even though he's smart. Or he should stop fooling around in school, in class. And I remember when I was a kid, because my birthday is so close to the end of the school year, whether I had a birthday party or not and presents was contingent on how well I did on that report card. So I had to there are so many years I had to kind of hide my report card until after my birthday. And there are so many times I had to forge my parents' signature on the report cards to hand it back in. um, and it, growing up, like I thought I was a bit of a failure because I didn't go into I didn't get into and I didn't go into engineering because my parents wanted me to have a profession.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get into pharmacy school. I tried 3 times. I didn't get in. Thankfully, I recognized, very after the second attempt, I was like, maybe pharmacy school is not for me. So thank God I didn't go into pharmacy. And then I kind of scrambled to find like a profession now that I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to be an engineer. I'm not going to be a pharmacist. I said, okay, I panicked. I was like, what's the next best thing? What's the next best thing that my parents will still be proud of me and tell people that I'm in? I'll be a business person. Yeah. I'm going to go into business school. Right. And I did follow that, and I found I fell in love with advertising and marketing. So it's good. But I almost became an accountant, almost went into finance, which would have just sucked the soul out of me. And then I kept doing this and kept trying to achieve, going up the ladder and whatnot. And then I ruptured my Achilles in a freak accident. And it was then that it was, I had depression, but it was so freeing in a sense that I recognized, like, at the time I signed. I was second job out of university. I had a pretty good salary, enough to pay a down payment or a deposit for a pre-construction house. So the marketplace my parents are living in right now. I drove a really nice car, but at that point in my life, I recognized that everything can be taken away so easily. And it didn't matter that I drove a nice car or I had a good salary. All I cared about at that time was whether or not I can walk again, whether or not I can play badminton again. And it clicked with me that life's too short to worry about all these things that you're not going to take with you when you die. And that moment and that realization was so liberating, so freeing, that it started me on this path of entrepreneurship, and really kind of took a hard look at it again. And it didn't take until, again, the global pandemic for me to fully commit into it. I think
yeah.
I think maybe you can talk a bit more about maybe share some stories about people you've worked with or yourself. How you've you talked a bit about getting that courage. What have you seen other people develop courage from or confidence from?
It's the small wins that can happen from making an attempt, because there is this, people stand on the edge, and they stand on the edge and they feel the pressure behind them of the things they don't enjoy, and their jobs that are sucking the lives out of them, and the expectations of parents and family, and in their mind they feel they should be doing more, they could be contributing in some other way, whatever. But then what's in front of them is this unknown, and that's so fearful, for all the reasons we've already spoken about. So for me, sometimes a big part is, it's funny, sometimes the moment that someone makes the first payment to me, it flicks a switch, because they're saying to themselves, I'm committed to this. I'm going to do this. I'm hiring an expert who's helped dozens and dozens of other people. I'm in. And then that's the switch. For some other people, it's the moment that I help them and encourage them and push them to take that first step. And they take that first step and realize that there is no bear, there's no axe murderer, their family doesn't disown them.
Right.
And then it's really like, it can be these little small moments. I had an interaction with a client in the last couple of days. They had previously been getting advice from a different business coach that didn't feel right with them. And they were actually burning relationships with potential clients. And they were in a bit of a shame spiral about it. And they were feeling pretty upset about it. And I gave them some different advice, and I asked some powerful questions and helped them kind of reframe it. And as I was walking into my office today to chat with you, I got a message, and it's a screenshot of the conversation with one of these people that they felt they'd burn the bridge with. And the person is thankful, and they're back into a conversation, and she feels back in alignment with like who she is and how she wants to show up. And again, like that's just a deeper version of following what you think you should be doing based on the opinion of others. And in this case, this person had made the leap. They are being an entrepreneur, but they were taking the advice from someone else that didn't sit well with them. Like, we've got this inner compass. And when you feel that uncertainty, you feel that fear, just a matter of, I think I might have ended our last conversation about this, about like just questioning it and asking questions around it. Because if you start asking like, where is this coming from? What might be causing this? You can figure out like, oh, is this just me playing small because of the expectations of family, culture, whatever. Or in this case, when this person sat with it, they realized, oh, I'm doing something that feels out of alignment, that doesn't feel true to me. And I'm doing it because I feel like, in quotes, I should be doing it. And again, so like our bodies are great compasses. If we stop and we get really heady, we fill our minds full of information. We go into scroll holes. We look at, scroll on Reddit for 5 minutes. You've now got 98 new pieces of information. That's just like nonstop, all the time. But the reason why things like meditation and yoga and Pilates and breath work and all this other stuff is, transformative for people. I hate the word, but it is a good word sometimes, is because it stops us and we actually get back in tune with like, oh, what is my body telling me? What signals are there? So like, fear isn't bad, but not questioning it, not thinking about it, not poking at it. Like, where does this come from? Where is this coming from? Why might I be feeling this? What could I do about this? Is it because, and then once you challenge it a little bit and hold a mirror to it, then you can get out of it. You can learn from it. You can grow from it.
Yeah. And I think that introspection and analyzing where that fear is. So I'm a climber. Actually, behind this painting is a poster of a really great climbing film. It's called Meru. And of course, one of my idols is Alex Honnold, who won an Oscar for a climbing documentary called Free Solo. His memoir that he wrote at the age of 29 is kind of inferior complex, because him writing a memoir at 29, achieving immense global success in his career, versus me when I was reading it, I was like 30, and I was like, oh man. But anyways, it's such an interesting topic about what fear. So in climbing, there's something called real risk and sort of like so like actual risk versus perceived risk, right? If you're harnessed in, your anchor is bomber and your anchor is like set up properly, right? The chance of you falling to your death is almost zero, right? But there's still a part of your brain that still thinks that you're going to fall to your death. So perceived risk versus real risk. And this is a topic that I want to dive into with some of my climbing friends, but all of them are quite shy. So I'm trying to beg them to come onto this podcast to talk about that. But it's so great that you talk about this, because once you overcome that perceived risk or that fear from that perceived risk, and once you analyze and you know where that's coming from and you overcome it, I think the next step, and you talked about this just prior, is now putting it into action, right? I'm a huge believer of the same quote, where getting it done is better than getting it perfect. And I always say, perfection is the enemy of the good. And often this is something I preach with like data analysis as well. You don't need to get perfect data to analyze it; just do it good enough. And I always say like the upside, and I guess like the profit you're able to gain on actioning on data rather than waiting on data is going to be so much more beneficial to your business than waiting for perfect data. So how have you helped some of your clients, take that leap after, they take that leap and then now putting things into action? You spoke a bit about this, so maybe you can elaborate.
So it depends on the person, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a lot of frameworks. I've done it a bunch. I've gotten messy. I've made mistakes. I've helped all these other people, and I've helped them learn from their mistakes. So at this point, I've got like a compository. I've got frameworks that make it really simple, because there's previously I was working more with newer coaches, people that are starting out, want to be a coach and maybe have no idea how to turn it into a business, or someone who has recently gotten a certification and has no idea how to then, okay, I've really upped my coaching skills, but then how do I actually make it out of a business? And I've learned a lot with them and helped them replicate some of the successes that I've had in their own unique way, because everyone is different. But now I'm attracting people who have been at it for a few years, 2 years in, 3 years in, 5 years in, but they're not getting the success that they want, or they've created they've gotten themselves stuck in a bit of a mental mud hole, if you will. And just being able to show them, hey, this is actually a lot easier than you think it is. Here's a framework. Here's step 1 through 5. Here's the way you can navigate it. And this is the way that you can custom it to yourself, to just take some of that unknown out of it. And yes, they still need to be the brave ones to take the step, to take the action, to put themselves out there, to do whatever it is. But to just have someone to give you a map and be able to say, like, here's the 3 biggest mistakes I ever made. Here's a shortcut way to do it. Here's some things to consider when you're making this your own, are some of the things that I get the best feedback from when I'm helping clients.
Awesome. I think I'm going to start stealing that strategy and put it in the context of advertising. Top 3 mistakes I've made in running campaigns. Here's how you can customize your campaign to your own. So thank you for that. I think, and if I do run these videos and tutorials, I'm going to definitely credit you for inspiring me for doing this.
Yeah, well, because I think you hit on something good with your question, is that understanding that there's a couple different parts of the journey. So let's say that we were working together and you really wanted to do something, but you were afraid of it, you were unsure, but you also didn't know how. The first thing I need to do is to help you with those mindset shifts, is to help you with seeing what's possible, to help you shine a light on some of your blind spots. That includes places where you've got strengths that you don't realize and mistakes that you maybe don't realize that you're making. And then once I help you do that, then we've created a bond, a relationship, and normally some trust, where then you will trust me for me to say, awesome, Brian, now that you believe it might be possible and you see your potential, like, here's the map, here's the steps. And it is a very logical sequence for that kind of stuff. So, a lot of the content that I'm putting out there is about helping people switch the way they look at things and helping them realize some mistakes that they're making. And then even when I have like my behind my paywall, quote unquote, like my paid stuff, a lot of my modules will start with a deep dive on that. Like, what are the mistakes you're making? What are the things to avoid? What are the mental framework shifts you need to make to be able to see this in a different perspective? Because then once you turn that key, then it's really easy to say, awesome, here's the 5 steps, here's the framework, here's the way to make it your own.
Right. And I'm starting to understand the role of a coach a lot better through our conversations with my conversations with Anna as well. It really is like a sports coach where, back in my varsity days, you have some talent, the basics, but then having someone able to observe you because you can't see how your body is, right? Because that's literally impossible, short of like you filming yourself. But someone who's seen multiple athletes succeed and able to give that perspective to you, and then coach you on and tweak, like, for example, instead of putting your arm out here, put it a little higher, right? Maybe the angle of, I play badminton, so maybe the angle of your racket is, if you tweak it this way or you turn your arm this way. I've had amazing coaches in the past. So Wayne King of the U of T varsity team, my good friend Nick, who is an amazing badminton player, younger than me, but amazing coach, and lots of people who've helped me, tweak what I was bad at. And now I understand it. Like, it seems stupid looking back. I was like, oh, the word coach should have been intuitive to me, athlete. But now I understand.
I want to add to that, because I love that you've just shared that you've had that aha, and it's something I love about coaching, or to help people understand it, is you can't read the label from inside the jar, and that you're inside your own jar. And you can't read your own label because you're inside. And that is exactly what you're explaining with this external perspective, someone who's seen and worked with a bunch of other athletes, who can tell you about the slight tweak to the angle to make with your elbow and what a difference that makes. there's something else I want to share too, based on your talking earlier, you're talking about this great director who wrote his memoir at 29 and you're reading at 30 and they're like comparing yourself. And it's normal for you to think like, well, shit, what am I doing with my life? Because this person's already writing a memoir.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an idea, a way of thinking around hiking. So you mountain climbed. Do you ever go hiking? Do you ever go on like trails or paths?
Yep.
Right. So if you and I were deciding that this weekend we're going to go for a hike, I don't know, at the escarpment or something, and we get in a car together and we drive there. If we got to the parking lot and we got out of the car, if we saw people ahead of us on the trail, we wouldn't say, screw it, we're not going to go. They're already further ahead of us than on the trail. Get back in the car and go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the comparison really is an unserving trap, because it doesn't matter where other people are on the trail for you to compare yourselves to them.
Yeah. And I think I talked about this with another guest of mine, Chad. His episode was amazing too. And I love the guy. He's such a talented and creative person. We talked about, or he mentioned that you need to have definitions for words, and we touched upon, how do we define our own success? Like I do this all the time for campaigns, like measuring and defining success. And right now, at that point in my life, I wanted, this, that, and I defined success as this image, right? And I was pursuing that image, but then having some like introspection and reflection time, I realized my definition of success is now completely different, and that helped me overcome that comparison mindset. And now I'm not measuring myself against other people. I'm measuring against this internal image that aligns with my values, my beliefs, and I model myself after people I admire, right? Who may not, quote unquote, be successful in the eyes of the general public, but I find how they lead their life to be very, very successful, right? So, for example, now I don't care much for my material possessions. I don't really like I. This is the first sweater I bought, or first piece of clothing I bought in like years, because I had such a minimalist mindset that I didn't really want to own things. I own beyond this sweater for the longest time. I only had like 3-ish sweaters that I wear. So in the winter, you see me in the same sweaters. It doesn't mean that I can't afford new sweaters, but it's just I don't need these things anymore. So thank you for giving me that example. I think it's super important to recognize that even though someone, like, there will always be like, that's another thing I recognize. Like there will always be people who is way further ahead of you. Like that's something I realized when I was playing badminton too, and that's why I didn't really like pursue it any further, because I enjoy playing. I wasn't so much chasing after titles, right? I just enjoy playing, so I kept playing and kept training. And now my mindset is, okay, I have my own definition of success, and once in a while I refine it. Once in a while I revisit it and take days off, like today, to reflect on how I've been, what I'm planning to do in the future.
So what are some of the ways that you define success right now? You said, so one of them is that you allow yourself to take a day off like today to be more strategic and creative in your thinking. What are some of the other different ways that you define success now?
Right now, I feel I'm pretty successful. I've gotten to a point where I don't necessarily need to work to make a living, where I can once in a while just enjoy my time. Like volunteering and do, going around the world to. So for example, for a few years in a row, I would go abroad. So the past 2 times was in the Philippines. I would go into to the Philippines and live in the villages with people from my church that are local there, and also from around the world, to help those people who are in the villages. So it could be kind of like running a summer camp for the kids there, so that they have something to do in the summer. being able to do that and take time off to do that is my definition of success. Being able to afford to do that, right? And giving back to people. I think I'm in a very privileged scenario where I don't necessarily have to worry about my finances, even though I still worry because that's the anxiety part of my brain.
Yeah.
But being recognizing that privilege and helping other people reach their success. So, for example, like I've been helping 50 small business owners in my network to build good advertising campaigns, right? Help them with some of my expertise. I do it for them for free, and this, like, all these things are kind of like what I define success currently, and I'm living it, and I'm so happy to and thankful to be able to do that.
I love that. I love that. And I'm sure it's a stark contrast to before compared to when you were, it had to be the external version of success or the material version of success. There's an aha that I've had in recent weeks about what my rich life looks like or what success means to me that I hadn't really considered before. And we were talking a bit before we started recording, and is that the realization that in 2020, I woke up to an alarm clock only 3 times. And that to me, being able to just get up when my body wants to get up versus a jarring alarm is success for me, is one of the small indicators of me being successful. Speaking of 2020, the other thing I did, and it speaks to me because you were just talking about helping others and being in service, is I reviewed my entire year and I looked at the data points I had, and I pulled up all my journal entries and I looked at all the content I put out, because I put out a fair amount of content, and that is pretty indicative of where I'm at mindset-wise at the time. And then I looked at my revenue. And I compared month to month, and the periods when I was feeling most grateful and helping people the most and coming from a place of service and trying to focus on how I can help other people, my journal entries reflect my joy and my bank account reflects that being in that place. Like, those were by far my best months, versus there was a period where I got really focused on business metrics and revenue outcomes, and it was more stressful. And my journal entries are either non-existent or pretty heavy. And those are my shittiest months from a revenue standpoint. So coming from a place of helping others and serving others not only feels good to me and feels like, okay, this is a definition of my success, but without intending it to be, also in some kind of cosmic way ends up increasing my success if I was to use external metrics.
Yeah, I think a part of my, I don't want to say like my business model, but part of how I operate now is I leverage my paid work so that I free up time to be able to do free work. And it doesn't necessarily mean like my business model is to help people for free, because, by definition, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's not a business. It's just charity. But I'm really thankful and grateful to have the opportunity to free up time in my schedule, because I don't have to be married to a job or be married to a few clients and slave away for that. But now I can free up time to focus on myself, spend time with the people whom I love, and do the things that I love, help other people, or maybe once in a while go on a hike, when the gyms are open again, go climbing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to going climbing again. We'll see.
I love that. I love that. Focus on the other people, the relationships, and your own health. Because one of the reasons why I love not waking up to an alarm clock and get when my body wants is I'm still on a healthy sleep cycle. I still go to bed at a good time. And it means I get up and I make breakfast for the family every day. And I have time to check in with the kids. Like, how's it going today? Where's your head at? And I don't feel like I'm starting from a stressful point of view. And it means I have time for my morning exercises, my cold shower, my meditation. So it is from the outset, front loading those kinds of things that are, supporting me, serving me, my mental health, my relationships, and my well-being.
Awesome. And I think we can round off today with a version of the question I asked you last time. So instead of asking, a piece of advice that you would give to yourself when you're starting out, maybe a piece of advice to that you've you've given to a lot of your clients or people whom you've helped. What's that one key piece of advice that you've given, different than the one you gave last time?
Yeah. Two pieces that go hand in hand. One is the realization that the opportunities that exist currently to get your message out in front of a specific group of people internationally for free or for cheap is a once in a lifetime, like a once in a century kind of opportunity that in the future we're going to look back and think like, holy cow, I can't believe that was possible. Because I remember it's not 15, 20 years ago where it was like, what, TV commercials, billboards, you're going to run radio ads? Should we talk about the cost and how prohibitive those kinds of models are? And then what you're going to run the different commercials per market versus right now I have an international business because I publish content online. That and then the other thing that holds people back from showing up online is thinking it has to be perfect and thinking it has to be awesome. And I joke with people that you're not making a Super Bowl ad. You're not making a World Cup ad. So just like show up. And we talked about this before last time, you pushing through your fears and even you just doing the show is kind of one of the things, but not thinking it needs to be some high bar. And that goes right back to this topic of this conversation, that it has to be perfect. And actually the best way to get something to go viral, quote unquote, or to really resonate is by having more attempts and more at-bats. There is proven studies that shows that if you want better creative ideas, your best bet is quantity. And by putting out a lot of stuff, you're more than likely to learn from the experiences and grow. And then therefore, maybe if you're lucky, have something that really hits a grand slam.
Awesome. Thank you for that. None of these episodes are perfect by any means. And I'm learning every episode in, like we just talked about before we started recording. And even right now, I'm like tripping on words. So I'm definitely not the best podcast host, but I have great guests. So thank you so much for your time, Rob. Once again, where can people find you?
If you do a search for Robb Gilbear with two B's, ROBBGILBEAR, you'll find me. I'm most active and post most regularly on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram a lot. Those are the two best places to get a hold of me. I'm also trying to manage my addiction with Clubhouse currently and think it is a wonderful, wonderful platform with a lot of potential. Those are the best places to reach me.
Okay. I love your LinkedIn content. I love your Instagram content. I'm a huge consumer of those two feeds right now from you. And I'm still trying to figure out Clubhouse. I feel like my uncles and my grandparents trying to figure out technology now. Like TikTok and Clubhouse are the two things I'm trying to crack right now. Love to chat with you about that. But I'm on Clubhouse now, and I'm still trying to figure out how to join rooms. But next time I see you creating a room, I'm going to join it.
Perfect. I'll ping you in. I'll give you a heads up. The last one was spontaneous, but I'll probably create something next week that's planned and scheduled, and I'll invite you ahead of time so that you know about it.
Awesome. I actually saw that notification come in last night, but I was just like, wait, how do I? Anyways, I'll figure it out. I think I'm pretty smart. But thank you so much for your time. Always a wonderful conversation with you. I think next time maybe we can chat more about what it's like to have children and run your own business. I think that could be a fun conversation.
That's a whole other topic. Yes. I'm glad that'd be fun.
All right. Thank you and take care. Hi, Brian here. Thank you so much for watching the very end. I really appreciate it. I make videos on business, advertising, and marketing. So be sure to subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell so that you're alerted when the next videos come out. So stay tuned.